Hello everyone and welcome to the 7th episode of the Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, and I am your host Gary, and today I am in a secret location deep underneath the motor pool, and now that's not so secret. But anyway, today I have new stuff to talk about, as well as taking a little closer look at the G.I. Joe Classified Roadblock, and also take a look at a vintage, simple vehicle, the Cobra Adder. In the past few weeks, it's been kind of unusual for me, but I have bought a bunch of new stuff. And some of it's a little bit of pre-orders coming in, but some of it is also lack thereof of impulse control and getting some deals when I saw them and or found them. I'm going to start off with a gift, actually, of all things. I was told a friend of mine from Norway, his name is Bjorn, he and I have been trading G.I. Joe stuff overseas, and notably being the guy that I always mention online that I sent him a Defiant from Connecticut, USA to Norway. And like you said, every so often, but very rarely am I speechless when opening a box. And this would have been a perfect box to do an unboxing video, but I was so excited to get it. He sends me this box, and it has MREs in it, some chocolate for my family, and then there's another little box for stuff for me. Usually, when I collect my G.I. Joe figures or toys, I stay inside the United States. I cater to domestic release product, only because I know that there's that foreign release stuff that becomes a big, huge rabbit hole of exclusives, hard to find, unique variations from the domestic release are so minor. But he included 2 European Tiger Force figures. The first one is Tiger Force Psych Out, the blue pants and the orange shirt versus the green on the original. And he's cool. He's got the same accessories as the regular one, and it's like, and he's got the brown hair instead of the blonde. Good looking Psych Out, and Psych Out does get some good use in the comic books. Oh, and as a little bit of a tangent, the comic books, issue 285 dropped last week. I read it, and it was a good book. Out of the 5-issue arc, I think it was the best issue that Hama and Andrew put together. It's a very strong finish. I thought it was good, and my one thing would be is they're going to do 5 spotlight issues, and I hate how they're doing everything for a trade paperback. That's an editorial decision. I just wish they would just continue on with the Adventures of G.I. Joe each and every month and keep the momentum going. But anyway, back to poor Tiger Force Psych Out. Really cool, and I wasn't all I knew is the package was in customs for over a month, and the customs for a month took its toll mostly on the chocolates. But then there was this one other figure that I couldn't believe I had in my hands. Tiger Force Outback. The amount of generosity, of just a guy that I've just been friendly with over the internet and be like, I found I have an extra Defiant, do you want it? And, next thing you know, months later, I'm sending it to him and, helping him put together the comic collection and everything. And I'm still struggling to come up with words as I look at him, the white hair, the epic orange t-shirt, the camo pants, and then to find out it was one of his 2 that he had as a child. I salute you, Bjorn. It's still, I look at this today, and the emotion I feel just being overwhelmed by the generosity of this gift it's, with Psych out, obviously, but I have wanted I think Outback's just an epic figure, and to have this version of him, which I never expected to even get there or go there. It's hard for me to put into words. He stands next to another gift of mine from Michael Vegas. You might know him as Mike Vin in the Pit, epic photographer on Twitter and Instagram. He sent me a Red Laser version 2 Snake Eyes that he customed up. It's been in a bunch of his pictures. Literally two, as far as I'm concerned, my most valuable figures. Those two in a Play Worn Airtight that I love to play with every so often. I just want to publicly thank Bjorn once again. The generosity shown leaves me speechless. Now we can talk about things that I bought over the past couple weeks. The first thing I ran into was I went to Terrificon and walking around with my friends at the Pint of Comics. I have a rule for carded G.I. Joe figures. I want them only if they are action figures I had brand new as a kid, or they got to be cheap enough to open. When you hear what I open, you know what I'm going to open. I'll probably film it. It was a Star Brigade countdown from 1993. Card has a crease in it, but it was $25 at Terrificon, and he's going to serve on my Defiant once I get my display working. I have a rule for carded figures that it's no more than $30 shipped, because I'm an open guy, so they got to be opened, and they have to be worth opening. So something of no real, I'm not opening up Night Force figures, or I'm not opening version 2 Snake Eyes. I'm opening just cool figures to have, because sometimes the 90s figures especially are so cheap carded because they were spec buys that it doesn't hurt me. It's not a pedigreed action figure. Which then brings me to another carded figure I found. I bought him on Macari. Again, under $30 shipped, was Talking Battle Commander Stalker. And the card is completely damaged. The corner's ripped. Unfortunately, there was tape on his file card, so somebody peeled that off, so now you can't. There's a big spot in the middle of the file card. But the batteries still work, which means they haven't exploded yet. And because I have batteries that could explode, it is only in the best interest that I open this guy up. That's another one I didn't have off my 82 to 94 domestic list. Under $30. Vintage-wise, there's just a couple more buys that I did. I bought a Big Bear, and I absolutely love him. I think it's super solid. I'm glad the sculpt got lots of reviews. He has a double-barreled bazooka launcher, which is hilarious, because everything that the Soviet Union did had to be bigger, badder than what the U.S. did. And you just heard my figure stand that came with him fall off. He is cool. I love it. The October Guard is an awesome subset of G.I. Joe, and I'm just working my way down the O-ring line on him. He's my second one. This is version 1 of Big Bear. It's not the second version. So he's green. He's got this AK-88, the double-barreled low-noise bazooka, and his file card quote is absolutely hilarious. "You G.I. Joes, airborne troops afraid to fall without parachutes, no guts." Just, this guy's either incredibly brave or incredibly crazy. I don't care. His characterization on the card is so over the top. It's awesome. He'll look good next to Red Star and the original 6, which I have in the comic packs. And then finally on the vintage front, again, I do some shopping, not only on eBay, but I do shopping on Macari. And I'm always, again, looking for deals. I finally pulled the trigger on a 100% complete hydrofoil with spotlight, the spotlight lens. And The guy advertising it, he said, I'm selling my original toys. I've had it since the 80s. It's 100% complete. This, that, and the other thing, but it had the spotlight lens, and it was like $150. It also came with some other boats. It came with a couple devilfish and a Battlecore inflatable boat. I think it's the Shark 9000, and that thing is underrated. I can't wait to build and complete that. But the hydrofoil was obviously the reason why I purchased it, and I finally have a complete hydrofoil. I spent too much money. I just got to that point where it was buy now. I felt it was a reasonable price for what the current market is, and I have 2 to 3 others I need to sell to make room. I get the box, I open it up, and everything's in little bags. And when I say everything's in little bags, the guy took it apart. He took his original Moray apart as much as he could. So the side guns were popped off, not broken, but he took everything apart. In the front of the Moray, there is that missile launcher. You push down the button and it raises the missiles that come out of the bow. He took that out. So I'm trying to put it all back together. When I put things together, I check things. I go over my work. And I press the button and it didn't come up. And I'm like, oh no, did I just break it? So I unclip it and everything. And it's the early style Moray, so it doesn't have the extra deck clips. And the missile holder is a 2-piece construction, and it has 2 little clips on the backside towards the stern of the boat. The clips had stress marks from being pushed forward to unclip it. At that point, I was just like, oh my gosh, you can't believe that. Oh, and then on top of it, I'm just going to say this. One of the clips had broken. And the clip that was broken is the actual part that you see, that the visual part. It's not the underside part that the missiles, gravity rest on, but the top part, the visual part that when everything's closed up, looks nice. I go through my Moray stash and I find an extra top and I clipped it in, but my top also had the same problem of the tabs being stressed and pushed forward. I had an old broken exhaust tube from another Moray, and I cut it up to make little C-clips. And the C-clips were narrow enough that I slid them in the slot to push the tab so the tab remains locked. And you can't tell that they're in there when the whole thing's assembled. So now it's back together. I'm the second owner. It's complete. All original except for that one piece that, he broke the tab on. Another toy that's a permanent home in my collection. Came with the lamprey and his gun, file card, and instructions. I have them all to the side. I'm keeping it together. And eventually I'll get to doing a review on the Moray, because that's not today. There's a lot going on in that vehicle, and I'm kind of a little all over the place today because I got so much stuff. Also, as part of the Moray experience was he had a couple boats, and they were the devilfish. Am I the only one that just about every time he gets a devilfish, it's broken in one way, shape, or another? I have only one complete unbroken devilfish, and it drives me nuts. I don't know why. It's either the foot peg is broken, there's a little peg on the right side of the boat, sticks near the right side peg. The foot pegs are either broken, or the peg on for the tubes are broken. I don't get it. It's just like there must be something in that orange plastic, or kids floated them in chlorine too much. They got super brittle, and they just always break. Drives me nuts. Now in pre-orders, I got 2 new G.I. Joe classified figures. The first one I got through Amazon, because Hasbro Pulse had a limit of 1 per customer, was the G.I. Joe classified Snake Eyes movie Storm Shadow. And I have to say, the cream ish color they used in person is a lot less offensive than how they photographed it. I think overall it is a better figure than the Amazon exclusive Winter Storm Shadow. It works better from a flow and posability standpoint. He doesn't look as heavy. Again, though, you can make the argument that Winter Storm Shadow is in winter garb. But I watched the Sunbow cartoon. He didn't need sleeves for the snow. And he comes with 2 swords, which is kind of light on accessories. But I know Hasbro had to pay Andrew Koji to use his likeness. That's probably somewhere in the contract. So I'm going to excuse it. Also, I think as Storm Shadow, he should always have a bow accessory. And I will probably end up displaying him using my Marvel Legends Hawkeye bow. The bow I'm talking about came with the Old Man Logan set. Yeah, one other thing to talk about on the Andrew Koji Storm Shadow is the face is awesome. In the last episode, he did a great job in the movie. And that emotion and that presence is definitely in that face sculpt. And I can't wait to see them do another Storm Shadow. But from like a head swapping part, the Andrew Koji's head, he is, to me right now, he's Storm Shadow. Did a great job. And that's about all I could say on Storm Shadow for the moment. Finally, in another Amazon pickup, pre-order, was the new Heavy Artillery Roadblock. Now, the Heavy Artillery Roadblock borrows heavily from the 1984 Roadblock design, giving him a minigun instead of a Mod Deuce 50 caliber Browning big machine gun. The helmet is got a good modern army vibe. The broken chin strap, put it on or put it off. Helmets are brain buckets. They don't really protect you too much from bullets, more from bonking your head. But he's got his good web gear. His color scheme is very target for the original 1984 release. He is solid. And he's got that little soul patch like his version 2. One thing I got to say about, this being the 3rd version of Roadblock, with the number 1 version of Roadblock having a half, I call it a half V1.5 designation, is I think somewhere between the 4 versions of Roadblock, there is a definitive version 2 Roadblock. I like Roadblock, but my mind's eye for Roadblock goes 2 ways. It goes into the 92-93 Roadblock aesthetic, which is when I was super huge into the comics for the first time. Or it goes back to version 2, which is what I more associate with the Sunbow era. And also because he was in that from 1986 to 1991. So he had 5 years in that in the comic book as well. Tiger Force Roadblock didn't get any love so much, but 1986 Sunbow, 1987 movie, carting around. I Was Once a Man, Cobra Commander. I really enjoy that 1986 look. Somewhere in between all 4 of these figures, I could take the head from number 28 and take the vest from the 1B and just somehow meld. I'm not a boil and pop guy. I've never taken I can honestly say I've never taken apart a 6-inch Joe figure, but I'm thinking that I got enough stuff to do, and I kind of want to do it. He is an integral part of the Joe team. He is part of its heart, part of its soul. He cooks. Not only is he a badass dude, but he's a good dude. We got 4 versions of him for a reason. It's because he's a popular guy. Some people just don't want to admit it. A lot of people think he's starting to get overrepresented. You can make the case for Cobra Island Roadblock being heavy duty. This new Roadblock is definitely hard to beat. And now to close out the episode, I'm going to take a look at 1988's Cobra Adder. The Cobra Adder is one of those small value vehicles. And this was one of the vehicles that I bought when I was a kid with my own money. I remember picking this guy up at Stars in Wallingford, Connecticut. It was a department store, kind of heavy on the camping equipment, but it had a pretty good, well-stocked toy aisle. Being the 8-year-old that I was, G.I. Joe was my jam. And I remember picking this guy up with my hard-earned collected can money. First off, it's one of those value vehicles. So when you go on the underside of it, it doesn't have that finished belly. It's, I don't want to say crude, but it is light on the model aesthetic. But it's pretty well hidden when it's on the ground. And it's a very simple vehicle. Its armament is 2 surface-to-surface missiles. When I played as a kid, these missiles did everything. They were surface-to-air missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, surface-to-water missiles. Not too much of that. I'm not really much of a Navy guy. But these missiles did it all. And, they're big. They sit on the back. I don't know if I ever used them as like rocket accelerators while they were on the Adder. I could see myself doing that because I'm mentioning it now. But as designed, like I said, the blueprints called them surface-to-surface missiles. So this is essentially a portable artillery vehicle. I have a couple of these in my collection because when you have a terrordrome, you have to have defense systems, and this would be one of them. I think it's hilarious on the box. You have Road Pig driving this. Would you have a Dreadnought driving around in a Cobra vehicle? I know that the Ferret ATV is right up their alley, but this is a little more hardware, and of all the Dreadnoughts, Road Pig, oh well, it's 1988. You got to show a figure with it, I guess. It elevates up. It has a red hydraulic cylinder that slides back. And that's to take place of the function of a real hydraulic cylinder, which would expand and contract. And it sits down into a little notch, which puts the missiles into almost a near vertical position. Cool idea for future or customization is to put little notches in to adjust the elevation in various positions. I would think that as a surface-to-surface missile or artillery type weapon, that would adjust the trajectory and adjust the range. Too high up, and it's just going to go straight up and fall straight down. The cockpit is rather simple. You got a red seat sitting in the middle of the 2 handles, which would operate, I would assume, like a skid steer, because you don't have any steering motion in the front wheels. And you also have a little monitor on the left side and a sticker for targeting on the right side. And the sticker is pretty detailed, showing a aircraft in the crosshairs. Okay, guys, is it surface to surface or surface to air? It rolls on 6 gray tires that snap onto the blue body. And it has a couple stickers, hydraulics, cautions and Cobra sigils on the front. It's just a simple vehicle, but it has its role on the battlefield, much like the Slugger on the G.I. Joe side. Although I would assume the Slugger, while the ammunition would have less of a punch, it holds more of it. It even has on the front, it has 2 little headlamps. That would be a place that I could see throwing a little splash of yellow for light to give the illusion of headlamps. Like I said, not much to say about this little guy. It's definitely something in my collection, especially displaying it with my Terrordrome. I want 2. I'm going to use it more as a defensive weapon because of its simplicity. I don't look at it much as an offensive weapon because once you expend the 2 missiles, what are you doing with it? It's cannon fodder. It only transports 1 guy. There's no place to mount other guys on it. But that's fine. I have many fond memories, and I'm happy to talk about it today because its beauty is in its simplicity. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Chaplain's Assistant's Motor Pod. I can be found on Twitter and Instagram at ChaplainJoePod. And don't forget, the little guys in the red suits want me to mention that I am part of the Pint O Comics family. And you can find them at pintocomics.com. The Chaplain's Assistant's Motor Pod can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and other podcatchers, much like our hosts Spotify and Anchor.fm. Coming soon to YouTube. I mentioned it a couple episodes, but part of my new stuff acquisitions the past couple weeks has also been investing in production values so I can put visuals to the audio for YouTube. We'll mention that it will go on the Pint of Comics stream eventually. With all that being said, we'll see you next time where we compare who has the larger plastic dinosaur collection. Is it Chaplain Assistant Kurt or Chaplain Assistant Paul? That's an upcoming debate that's going to take some research. And until next time, yojoe!